Okay, welcome to Flip Video 5. Today we're going to talk about the quotient rule with coefficients. So the first thing that we're going to do is review what we've been doing in class the last couple days, okay, which is just the introduction to the quotient rule. All right, take a second, and on your paper I want you to fill in that line that says quotient beside it and tell what the definition of a quotient is. What is the definition of a quotient? You should have something written down that says it's the answer to a division problem. If you remember, we've also talked about the product rule, and the product rule, product meant it was the answer to a multiplication problem. So quotient's just the opposite of that. It's the answer to a division problem. If you remember, multiplication and division are inverses, so hopefully that'll help you remember that the quotient is the answer to a division problem and product is the answer to a multiplication problem. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to take a second and complete the 3 review problems on your worksheet. Okay, so here are your 3 problems. X to the 5th over x squared. So you could have done this a few different ways. I'll show you all 3. You could have drawn the cubes that we had used on the desk. So I have 5 in the numerator and I have 2 in the denominator. And remember, I can create ones because a block divided by a block is 1. And I'm left with 3 boxes, which is the same as x to the 3rd power. The second way you could have done it is by, very similar to the first one, where you would use x's. So I'll use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over 4. And then I'm going to create my ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what I'm left with is x times x times x times x. So I have x to the 4th power. And finally, we can use the quotient rule that says that you can subtract your exponents. You can take the denominator away from the numerator. So I'm going to take 3 away from 9. So x to the 6th power. All right, go ahead and take a second and write down your learning target for today. Your learning target says, I can use the quotient rule to simplify expressions. So it's the same learning target from your last Flip Classroom video, but the difference is that now you're using coefficients, okay? That's the only thing that we're adding today. After you write down your learning target, I want you to go ahead and define coefficients on your paper. We've talked about this several times in class, and I think it's very important that we keep reviewing that vocabulary so we don't forget what it is. So coefficients are the whole numbers. Oops. They are the whole numbers in front of the variables. Remember, the variables are your letters, like x and y. So your coefficients are the whole numbers in front of your variables. So So let me show you an example of a problem that you might see. You might see 4x to the 4th over 2x to the 3rd. Well, if we weren't looking at the 4 over 2, and we just had x to the 4th over x to the 3rd, you would easily be able to figure out what that is. The only difference is we're adding an extra step. Okay, so on the right side of your paper, go ahead and write the steps for the quotient rule with coefficients. Okay, so here are your 3 steps. You're going to simplify coefficients, you're going to keep your base, and subtract the exponents. These steps look very similar to the product rule. The only difference is that instead of adding your exponents, you are going to subtract them. Okay, so step 1 says simplify coefficients. So let me get my pen out here. And so my coefficients are 4 and 2. So I'm just going to pull those out of there. So that's the same thing as 4 divided by 2, which I know simplifies to 2. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and put my 2 up here. And then x to the fourth over x to the third, I know will simplify to just x, but I'll show it to you just in case. Just x, so I'm going to have 2x. And that's my simplified version, okay?
Okay, guys, the first thing I want to do, as always, is go ahead and write my rules that I'm using for the particular problems over to the side. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. Let's go 6x to the third power divided by 2x to the second power. Now, just like we did with the product rule, we want to take a look at our rules. So the first thing we want to do is we want to simplify our coefficients. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then I'm going to come over and look at my bases. I'm going to keep the base of x. And then the final thing I'm going to do is subtract my exponents. So obviously there's a couple ways we can do that. For this particular problem, we're just going to take 3 minus 2, which gives us just gives us 1. So 3x is our answer. And if you wanted, you could put the 1 there to the first power, but it's not necessary. Let's take a look at problem number 2. Let's go with 8x to the fourth power divided by 4x to the second power. Hopefully you guys can hear that chainsaw in the back where they're working on the new gym and everything. It's very entertaining. So let's look at our rules again. Let's go simplify our coefficients. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And we're keeping the base of x. And again, we're subtracting our exponents. Now, if I want to come down and do it this way, as opposed to simply subtracting like we did over here, I could do that. I could make my pairs, and I still have x to the second power. Okay, so let's take a look at another one as our rules have magically appeared over in the corner just like we like them. Let's go 8x to the fourth power divided by 4x to the second power. So the first thing we want to do is simplify our coefficients. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. We want to keep our base of x. And then we want to just simply subtract our exponents. 4 minus 2 is 2. And, of course, we could have done it like this by making our pairs. And we still have x to the second power. Okay, let's add another variable in it. Again, our rules are over on the side, so don't panic at this point when you see a little bit longer problem. Let's go 9x to the fifth power, y to the second power, divided by 3x to the second power, and y to, you can say, to the first power. So we first want to simplify our coefficients. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. Keep our same base, x, and we have added another base of y here. So we always want to keep like bases. And one thing you may want to do just to help you from an organizational standpoint is write it out exactly like that, following your rules in sequence. And then the last thing we would do is go back and subtract our exponents. So 5 minus 2 is 3. And then 2 minus 1 is 1. So we're just going to have y or y to the first power.
Okay, so let's look at number 3. The first thing you're going to do is simplify your coefficients. So this time when I look at it, I have 2 over 4. Well, 4 doesn't go into 2 evenly, but I can reduce that fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and simplify that as far as I can. So I know that 2 will go into 2 one time, and I know that 2 will go into 4 two times. So I'm going to leave that as 1 over 2. So if you look, you can see that I extended my fraction bar all the way over because I'm going to put my x either above or below my fraction bar. So when I look at my x's, so x to the third over x, and I create my pairs of 1, I'm left with x squared. And if you look at it, you can see that those x's are in the numerator, so that's where I'm going to put them with this problem. The last problem in that section is 3x to the 4th power divided by 9x. First thing I'm going to look at is my coefficients. I have 3 over 9. 9 does not go evenly into 3, but both 3 and 9 are divisible by 3. So I can simplify. 3 goes into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. So I'm left with 1/3. And I extended my fraction bar. And then when I look at my x's, create my pairs of 1, I'm left with 3 x's in the numerator, so x to the 3rd power. For those of you who are having problems or remembering how to simplify fractions, let's go ahead and look at a couple of those together. So the first one I want to look at is 2 divided by 4, so 2/4. Now if I were to draw out a picture, I could draw 2 circles over 4 circles, and then I can easily see that I can divide the numerator and the denominator into groups of 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle groups of 2. So how many groups of 2 do I have on the top in the numerator, and then how many groups of 2 do I have in the denominator? 2/4 will simplify to 1/2. Let's look at another one. 3 over 9. So I drew circles to represent each, the numerator and the denominator. So now I'm just going to circle groups of 3. So 1, 2. So I have 1 group of 3 in the numerator and 3 groups of 3 in the denominator. So if you are having trouble simplifying your fractions, draw some circles or draw a picture to help you represent that. Yeah. Okay, here are the last 4 problems that you are to try on your own. So pause the video and write those down.